Iran has rejected a proposed truce in its war with the US and Israel, despite a threat by US President Donald Trump to destroy its vital infrastructure. Trump's deadline ends in less than 24 hours, but Iran says that Trump's threats are baseless. President Donald Trump is demanding that Tehran reopen the Strait of Hormuz by Tuesday 8 p.m. local time, that's Eastern time, or face a newly devastating round of bombing.
The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to.
Iran dismissed the threats as baseless and said that they would not deter ongoing military operations. Iranian military spokesperson said that US President's rude rhetoric and arrogance stemmed from a deadlock, and they were intended to justify what he called repeated US military failures.
The rude rhetoric, arrogance and baseless threats of the delusional US president, arising from the deadlock he faces and aimed at justifying the repeated defeats of the US military, will have no effect on the continuation of offensive and crushing operations by the fighters of Islam against US and Israeli enemies, and will not repair the humiliation of the United States in West Asia. With the help of Almighty God, every action you take will add another defeat to your previous defeats.
Both Trump and Iran said, meanwhile, that a proposal touted by international mediators for a 45-day ceasefire is not yet ready. Trump had said earlier that the plan is a significant proposal, but he later went on to say that it was not good enough. Iranian state media quoted officials as saying that Tehran too has rejected a ceasefire. Iranian state media said that in this response set out in 10 points, Iran has insisted on the need for a definitive end to the conflict. Tehran's demands include an end to the conflicts in the region, a protocol for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, reconstruction and the lifting of sanctions. Now, the UN Security Council is set to vote on Tuesday on a watered-down resolution addressing Iran's threats to the Strait of Hormuz after more robust drafts earlier faced potential vetoes. Bahrain, backed by other oil-exporting Gulf countries, launched negotiations 2 weeks ago on a draft resolution that would have given a clear UN mandate to any state wishing to use force to unblock the strait. However, after objections from several veto-holding permanent members, including France, the latest draft does not expressly authorize any kind of force. Iran has imposed an effective blockade on this critical waterway since the United States and Israel launched the war on February 28th, sending ripple effects throughout the global economy. Iran's virtual blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil normally flows, has sent oil and gas prices soaring and pushed countries around the world to enact measures to contain this fallout. All right, to discuss this further, I'm now being joined live by Navdeep Singh Suri from New Delhi. He is the former ambassador of India to the UAE and former ambassador of India to Egypt. Ambassador Suri, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for making time for us. The deadline, less than 24 hours to go, Ambassador. Iran says these threats are baseless because we've seen enough extensions to the deadline from Trump in the past as well. But then there is also reports suggesting that Iran is deploying human chains around its power plants. It happened just a few hours ago. Is there an actual threat now that this might just be the final deadline, or is there a sense that this deadline may also get extended, in your appreciation, sir?
I've given up trying to speculate on what goes on in the mind of President Trump. I think the Iranians have a point. There was a 48-hour deadline, there was a 5-day deadline, there was a 10-day deadline, then there was this deadline which is supposed to have ended last night, and now there's one which ends tomorrow morning. I'll wait to see what happens, but the threat that you can flatten Iran in a day or in 24 hours or in 4 hours or whatever he's saying, is pretty unrealistic. And I think if there's one clear message that has come from the Iranians is that they are not going to surrender. They seem to be prepared to take a fair amount of pain in their stride to maintain their sovereignty and stand up to President Trump. And I think it's worth pointing out to your listeners that President Trump's threats of bombing bridges and power plants are completely illegal. Deliberately targeting of civilian infrastructure does constitute a war crime. But the United States and Israel seem to have crossed that threshold of any respect for a rules-based order, any respect for international law quite some time back. And so today you are in this situation where the head of a state and of the United States of all countries can blatantly issue threats that that are tantamount to war crimes.
Ambassador Suri, you understand the Gulf region very well. You've served there for India. You've been the ambassador, UAE and in Egypt. I wanted to understand from you. Let's talk about the Emiratis here. Till now, we've not seen any of the Gulf nations get directly involved, even though they've been taking strikes or hostile projectiles on a daily basis. The UAE most recently, a little over a day ago, they mentioned that they would be willing to participate in any coalition force to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Do you foresee the Emiratis actually getting involved in a hostile manner or in a defensive posture in the Strait of Hormuz?
Whether it's the Emiratis or the Saudis or the Qataris, there are really no good options available for any of them for the situation in which they find themselves. And I should emphasize that the Iranian attacks on the Emiratis in particular and on the other GCC countries are also completely illegal, as is the threatened closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is an international waterway. So we are dealing with multiple illegalities at the same time. But on your specific question, the reason why I say there are no good choices available to them, firstly, who's going to lead that coalition with sufficient air power, military power, naval power to keep the Strait of Hormuz opened? I'm really not sure it is even feasible if the Iranians decide to use their geographical advantages to close the strait. The second is the reason why they haven't gotten into the conflict. I don't see what else they can do, even though they have a very capable air force, etc., that the Israelis and the Americans are not doing already. So if they enter into the conflict, they run the real risk that they've entered the conflict and America chooses to walk out tomorrow, day after, or whenever President Trump feels like. It leaves them high and dry with an angry and wounded neighbor next door. But I think some countries in the Gulf, and particularly Oman and Qatar, are also today weighing that if you continue to destroy Iranian infrastructure the way it's happening, and you have a very much weakened Iran, is that a better option, or is it worse than having a belligerent and expansionist Israel that is striking at various countries in the region with impunity? So I think those are some of the factors that countries in the region have to weigh, that which is the lesser evil for them. An unrestrained Iran that lashes out left, right, and center, or a belligerent Israel that has unlimited impunity and backing from the United States to do as it sees in the region.